Let me take you to a place that's very close to my heart. This is Port Barton, a sleepy backpacker town in the island of Palawan, and this is Nelman's Nipa Huts, and I'm proud to call this home. More than a home, this has helped me get out of my corporate job by hosting travelers around the world. How did I escape the 9 to 5 and end up having a slice of paradise? Not long ago, I was working the grind and moving from one company to another. I had moderate success, but I kept on looking for something that was more meaningful. This is my story.
Hey everyone, so today I wanted to share something with you, something that's very personal to me, and something that I'm quite passionate about. I wanted to share with you how I got myself out of the 9 to 5 routine and found myself doing business full-time, which was ultimately a more meaningful career for me. I know a lot of you are trying to find more meaning in your daily grind, from going to work from 9 to 5 to 9 to 7 sometimes. I wanted to share my story here with you, how I did it, how I got myself out of that workforce. Basically, it was by putting two of my passions together. One is being at the beach, and the other is by being in business. So I put those two things together, and I ended up with a business that I was truly passionate about. Here's my story.
It was this trip to Puerto Galera with Janessa's family in April 2017 when I started really looking into the possibility of setting up a business at the beach. I remembered looking around and thinking to myself why everything was foreign owned. They were the ones literally moving halfway across the world while we were left vacationing in our own country. I thought to myself, if they could do it, I should too. I would get my chance on my next trip a few months later in September. We were headed into Puerto Princesa and decided to chance upon a place that was still a low-key destination 3 hours northwest of the city. This town was called Port Barton. Although it was initially muddy and gloomy, I thought that this was exactly the place I was looking for. It wasn't packed and admittedly slow, but the availability of good food and a handful of accommodations showed how the place was primed for a boom in tourism. I was looking for something up and coming, which gave me a chance to come in at a still relatively affordable price. What clinched it for me was how Port Barton faced west and thus had picture-perfect sunsets. It had nearby attractions such as the Pamuayan waterfalls, which I knew would give enough reasons for people to keep coming back. Although the place was a little rough in getting to, the sight of paved roads being built were more than enough encouragement to see that things were going to progress. Now with enough reasons in place, then came the hard part of how I can actually call this place home.
Just to add a little context, at this point I was 34 years old. I was 12 years out of college. The first 2 years out of college I actually worked in the corporate world, and the next 6 years I actually worked with our family business. Now by the 6th year, in 2012, our family business had more or less ultimately failed already, and I found myself going back into employment. Fast forward to 2017, and this was my 4th year back in the workforce. And my biggest expense was the mortgage that I was and still am paying for. My mortgage is an investment in a property in a condominium, and basically how I've continued to pay for that condominium is to have it Airbnb for short-term guests. And basically, this experience gave me the confidence that I could actually do this for other places.
How I wish the search was as easy as this. Walking through a vast open field that led to an empty beachfront that was yours to claim. Unfortunately, things don't come that easy. Not even in paradise. Especially if you're looking for something that already has a fair share of infrastructure in place. The search went through more of grassy and muddy off-prime locations. Of course, these were the only properties fitting my budget. I also found out that what I had was probably just enough to lease a place rather than buying it. It was more likely for me to lease something run down and some ways away rather than building the beachfront dream house that you probably had in mind. But as luck would have it, we finally found a property for lease that fit our budget and just a 3-minute walk to the beach. We signed a lease in December, and shortly after, a contract to finish building our 2 rooms by March to turn this into this. I couldn't believe that I would have a legit place of my own by summer. But hold on, as is usual with plans, things don't typically work out as you thought. Much to our surprise, our kind and seemingly reliable contractor had greatly underdelivered. This was nowhere close to being done. We were really caught off guard as we planned to already sleep in our place. We scrambled to check in the nearest accommodation that we could find. We set a new agreement in place that our place would be fully delivered by May in 2 months' time. Taking another few more days off work, I headed back into Palawan expecting we'd all be finished. Sadly, our place still wasn't done. At least this time we could rough it out and spend the night in makeshift rooms. I was also able to forcibly take pictures of the rooms, even though they weren't done, just so I had them on hand and ready to upload on our page when it was finished. We all agreed though that our contractor was not going to deliver. We needed someone else to finish the job. While it was good to see Port Barton in peak season form, it was unfortunately this entire season that we were missing out on.
The original capitalization was about 600,000 pesos. Now with the change in contractor and sourcing other builders, we were about to go up another 15 to 20%. And the downside of missing our May and March targets were that we missed the entire peak season for 2018. Doing business in the beach obviously is a seasonal business, and that's what we had to factor in as well. So we missed the entire 7 months, the entire peak season of the business. This wouldn't have been a problem if we had owned the property because we own it forever, but since we were working with a 10-year lease, we had rentals all that time, so we had to factor that in also, and we counted these as losses at this time.
After a lot of disappointment and patience, we were finally ready to open up. It still wasn't perfect and a lot of things needed fixing, but it was finally in a state that was acceptable. Now I can finally go live with our listing and have this up online. I was ready to accept bookings while having this well-deserved golden beer on the beach. I was ready to leave my 9 to 5. And I was ready to enjoy Port Barton in its entirety.
The first thing that I could share about our venture into Port Barton is that a lot of it had to do with luck, a lot of it had to do with timing, and I think we got in just as Port Barton was really about to take off. It's still taking off, but right now it's already very expensive. It's not that I'm discouraging people from coming in, but I just think that there are a lot of beach properties out there all over the Philippines. If you actually know of properties areas or communities out there that have real potential, let me know, because I'm also continuing to look. Another thing that I wanted to discuss with regards this kind of business is that if you're going into a business that's heavily reliant on the real estate side, make sure that you do your homework and you check your paperwork, check the history of the land, and make sure that everything is clean, everything is within the right classifications. It would be very prudent for you to check these before you dive into it. As my experience has shown, you really have to have contingencies and plan ahead. Expect some things not to go your way. Really have some buffer so you're not working with a very limited portion of your budget. You should expect that things may run into problems and these may snowball. So when these happen, don't sweat it. Just try to find contingencies and be resourceful. Well, as shared earlier, the project in Port Barton was actually going to be a new source of income for me. But I already had a different source of income in the form of my condominium rentals coming in. So I just wanted to clear that up, that even if this marked my exit out of the corporate world, it was a long drawn out process of saving and investing and making the right moves, making the wrong moves. So this was a long time coming, and this just happened to be at the tip of the iceberg already. If you actually find these things interesting, let me know, because throughout the years I've really gone through lengths of saving, of being cheap, of spending wisely. And let me know if this is something that you'd like to know more about, because I'd be happy to share. I don't think I'd be sort of a guru for this matter, but I can relate. I'm like you guys, not too far from where you are, and I just wanted to start that conversation, see how we could help one another. Right, so the elephant in the room is, where do we stand now? Where does tourism stand? Where does our business stand amidst the pandemic, amidst COVID? The truth is, we don't know where we'll be in a few months' time. We don't know where we'll be next year. This thing has really turned the world upside down, but we're hopeful, and we trust that things will eventually work out. For me, what's important is I learned how to be in business for myself. I've learned how to take my wins, and more importantly, I've learned how to take my losses. Once we can all go back to traveling, I hope that you guys could consider visiting us at Port Barton. It's not very hard to get to our place. You could get to our place from the Puerto Princesa airport in less than 3 hours via van or bus. And don't feel pressured to stay at our place. There are many great lodging and accommodations across town who are going to be happy to take you in. The beach is chill, the beers are cheap, and the sights are great. I'll see you there.